Hey everybody, this is Scott Schimmel. I'm the co-host of the Dream Big podcast with Bob Goff and friends. Welcome back to another episode. I'm here with Bob Goff.
Hey everybody, I hope you're having a terrific week.
Bob, I was thinking on the way over to seeing you today that you and I had a conversation. We've had a few conversations that have been impactful for me, but one of those was a few years ago when I was contemplating moving from a very stable job that made my parents happy to go and do something unstable, start a company. And you were one of the last people I just wanted to get your opinion. I just wanted to get your thoughts. And so I think I kind of laid out my T-chart of the pros and cons of what I was thinking about. And I remember you just looked at me kind of like with a dumb look on your face, like, why would you not go do that? And that was really the last thing that I needed to hear, because there was something kind of in the back of my brain that just kept coming up. It wasn't, does this make sense? Am I talented? Is this a good opportunity? It was really deep down, do I have what it takes? And the big fear was no. And I think you just looking at me like that, you just gave me such confidence to push through that limiting belief that I had.
Yeah, I think we all have these beautiful ambitions, and that we're actually wondering underneath that, like, will it work? And what's a bad day? Leukemia, like that would be a bad day. But having one of your beautiful ideas not work, that's just Tuesday. And the beautiful thing is that there's a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday. Right. And so if you're listening to this and you can identify with a thing, like you've got this idea, you've analyzed it from every angle, like, can we just roll this thing out? Could we move it from just being a bunch of brain candy to actually doing this thing and overcome some of your fears? And so that's why today is so beautiful to be talking about clearing the path.
Yeah, and whether you're tracking with us or not, we're moving through the 7-part Dream Big framework. Part 1, a couple months ago, was talking through declaring and defining what your big ambitions are, getting clear about them, and having the courage and boldness to say, that's me. Those are my dreams.
And tell everybody about it. Like literally, if you get pulled over for speeding, tell the cops about it. Yeah. If you get hung up at TSA, tell whoever's there, like in having you surrounded, tell them about it. Tell everybody about it. And then the next framework key was explore opportunities.
Yeah. So you've got this big dream. Now what? How do you look down the different opportunities you have to go live out and express that dream? And this month we're shifting gears and shifting tone to talk about the inner stuff, the emotional stuff, the real stuff that sometimes is the actual battle as we think about declaring and going after our big dreams.
Yeah, I mean, you can think of these things as limiting beliefs. We'll be referring to that for the next little bit. But they're really the reasons why not. They're these barricades that got in the way between you and going after this expectation of yours. But you've got it's a self-made barricade, and you got to figure out, why is it that I don't just see that as a hurdle to jump over, but I see a barricade that prevents? And I want to explore those, because we each have them.
Well, I know I have them. Do you?
Oh, I totally do. Yeah. Everybody would know me as like that happy, go lucky, like whatever, it's going to work out. But actually that stems from being a really young guy who was super insecure. And here's the crazy thing. I'm an old guy that's still super insecure. What I learned, though, early on is that I can mask a whole lot of insecurity by just being fun or just be a funny guy. Because if I could make other people laugh, it wasn't about getting people's approval. If you're listening, that would be like doing it for the applause. You want the applause, join the circus. But approval is a different thing, that you're actually trying to get not validation for what you're doing, but approval, that other people would say, I agree with you. And I was so in need of approval as a young man that I learned to compensate by just making people laugh, because it was a way to get feedback immediately. The feedback loop is, you say something fun, everybody smiles, and I just got approval. And so what's happened? And so one of the things that you need to do in clearing the path is to go underneath whatever it is. So let's say you have a beautiful ambition, whatever it's been, and you haven't seemed to find your way there. What are the limiting beliefs that are preventing you? When I was growing up, my dad took me up to the Sierras, and he told me about rattlesnakes. What the rattlesnakes evidently do is they get underneath the logs, and then when you step over the log, the rattlesnake bites you in the ankle. I am 60 years old. I've never seen a rattlesnake yet every time I get on a log, I jump 5 feet out. It's
Yeah.
like the standing long jump.
Yeah.
And people are like, that is so bizarre. And if you're listening, you have been doing some bizarre things that people don't
Yes.
understand why. You need to understand why.
Yeah.
Because I grew up with a limiting belief that there's a rattlesnake under every single log, and its ambition in life is to bite me on the ankle. And so I do all these weird things to compensate, like jumping far away from the logs. And you haven't been doing those things. You've just been doing different things.
Yeah.
And those are your limiting beliefs. Let's go figure out why.
Well, there are different kinds of limiting beliefs. I'm not sure if I have what it takes. I'm not sure if I'm worth it. I don't deserve it. Maybe it's too late for me, or I'm just too responsible for too many things and too many people. And what you talked about, what will people think if I go after that? What will they say about me? Who am I to even declare that?
Oh, who am I to do that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think every single time I have a chance to visit with some people and they have like a light on me or something. I'm like, who am I? I mean, like if mess ups were push ups, I'd be totally ripped.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is to just get past these limiting beliefs that somehow like my past is going to be able to push around my future. I want my past to inform my future, but I don't want it to keep me from that. And so for some of us, you've had your past that's a failing. It was either a big public one or an even bigger private one.
Yeah.
And you think that just disqualified you instead of that, like actually educating you.
Well, how do you even do that? How do you walk through that? You talked about examining what those limiting beliefs are in the first place. So getting clear about what they are. It's almost like slowing down the tape to listen to the commentary and seeing what is that voice? Where does that come from?
Yes, you could actually spin the Beatles album backwards. I know I'm dating myself, but they actually record. I don't know if they said John Lennon's still alive or something, but to spin this thing backwards and to say, where did that come from? Because if you take your behaviors now that are getting in the way of you achieving your ambitions, to say, well, I always get to the starting line, but I actually never start the race.
Yeah.
And it's because you're waiting for somebody else to shoot the gun and say, start. Quit enabling whoever it is that you gave that gun to, to say they somehow have permission for you starting your race. Here, bang, go.
There it is. That's all you need.
There it is. I just gave it to you. So to say, are you trying to build consensus? Do you want to, or are you giving somehow agency to some guy in Omaha who's a stranger to you, who you haven't even actually met, but you don't want them to think ill of you if you tried and it failed? And so somehow I would say, like, could we just take the reins back and just say, if faith is a big deal for you as it is for me, I would say me and you, Jesus, let's just do this. I'm trying to get like kind of audience of one thing to say, what are these ambitions that you put inside of me? Are they ones that square with some of the things that I believe the most? And what's my next step? But if you're always preparing, but never starting, that would be an indicator. You'd say like, the 10 indications that you are struggling with a limiting belief, always preparing. So if you've got this list that you've made and you did your pros and cons, but you actually don't roll this thing out, you just keep adding to the list, you've got a limiting belief there. And so I would say there's no shame in that. But I say, could we just figure out the return address of that? Is that an old boyfriend, an old girlfriend, a teacher who spoke a lie over you, a parent, a sibling, a former spouse, whatever it is? Don't think bad of them. Don't try to get in their head. That's their work to do. Your work to do is to keep your eyes on your own paper, as Sweet Maria Goff says so oftenly to me. Keep your eyes on your own paper, and then just say, what's getting in the way? And how do I overcome this new limiting belief? How do I carve a new little groove in my brain and then go Grand Canyon with it?
I remember that conversation I had with you, that sense and fear in my head of I don't have what it takes. In that season, right after you and I sat down, I remember having a conversation with my mom one day, and I just kind of said, hey, what's going on? What's new? And she said, oh, I'm just being such a lazy human today. And all of a sudden, I don't know if you've had that moment where you start connecting dots and remember how many times I've heard her say that over the years. And it occurred to me, when I was growing up, if I wasn't doing something on a Saturday, like sitting around as a teenager would and watching TV, and she would come in and say, gosh, you're being so lazy today. So that in the back of my mind stuck for so many years. If I'm not always pushing forward, if I'm not always grinding, there wasn't even a day until recently on a vacation that I wouldn't work because that voice was in my head. You can't be lazy. Successful people, good people, keep working no matter what it takes. And behind that's probably some bizarre Puritan work ethic thing that just got pushed down on me. But I had to first figure out what is that voice, and then to figure out that's not mine. That comes from somebody else.
The crazy thing, like the return address of many of the things in our lives, is just a distortion of a beautiful truth that got just a little bit distorted, so that there was enough truth in there that it sounded like it really fit in your house. It's like the House of Mirrors at the circus. You go in there and there's just enough of distortion that makes you look tall and thin or wide and fat or like whatever it makes you look, but it's a distortion of what actually is there. And clearing the path means, could we just blow the foam off the top of this, do the work that it takes to get down to what that is, and then don't sit there. That's why there's a framework, and and we're going to talk next about taking action, but don't get stuck preparing. I don't want you to get in another rabbit hole, which is just figuring out all the limiting beliefs. They only have value if you'll actually go do something with, now you've discovered the return address. So if you've got the Facebook photo that shows you climbing an ice wall, it was actually taken at the local ice rink.
You're 4 feet off the
that's just all cropped out. But leave the photograph. That's awesome. But to say, so why am I trying to project those kinds of things? Why am I the balloon guy? And it can start from a really beautiful thing. Like, I just don't want people to be uptight. Like sevens on the Enneagram are not into conflict, but I'm actually a trial lawyer and I'm actually into conflict. So you go like,
that's ironic.
Dude, you are whacked. But I would say, no, I'm just trying to be self-aware. I know that I have a strong justice wing in there. I'm willing to suspend all of my avoidance of conflict because people who do bad things to kids, we're going to do bad things to them in other countries, and to say we're going to use their court systems. So you can explain what even seem like irreconcilable differences by going down the mine shaft, figure out what's there and why you do what you do. And as soon as we understand why we do what we do, now you've cleared the path.
Well, this month we have a tool for you. And speaking of self-awareness, it's a guided journaling workbook, and it's simply to help you start identifying what are those limiting beliefs in your life. Step 1, address it. Figure out what it is. Name it. Step 2, figure out where that voice comes from. And then step 3, talk about it out loud. And when you start talking about it out loud, it just gets demystified. It's all of a sudden starts sounding crazy. So name it, address it, and then share it with a friend or two and see what happens to that limiting belief.
There's something beautiful about just declaring, because it isn't calling the shots anymore. You're not giving fear all of this control over your life anymore. Say, like, I'm a fundamentally insecure guy. I think we all are insecure, whether you're leading the country or you're delivering the milk. Like, we're insecure, but we deal with that insecurity and express it differently. Some people get mean like a rattlesnake. Some people just get funny like me. And so, so once we understand that, then it doesn't have the control that it used to have. You can actually be more real and authentic. That's what it talks. That's why it's important to have the conversations, clear the path, because then we can start. We don't see that as a barrier anymore to your ambition. We actually say that's the preparation.
That's going to help you get there. Well, this month we've got a few great friends on the show: Miles Adcox, Corey Robertson, Ben Higgins. Tell us about what you're looking forward to these conversations.
Oh, they're all just, as I've said before, we don't bring people to this podcast who did something just magnificent that aren't friends. We only bring friends in. And so each of these friends have had just beautiful, authentic conversations about who they are, what they've encountered, how they got over it, what were the things that held them back, and what did they do next. And our hope is that you'll be listening and you'll start saying, what is it that I encountered? What do I need to do next? What is getting in the way? And then we can clear the boards and to just say, let's get on with it.
These are real conversations, I'd say, especially this month. We're talking about the real stuff that people who pursue their big dreams battle with and deal with. Bob's going to be sharing some of his, and these guests and friends will as well. So just a reminder, in the show notes, we have a guided journaling workbook for you, a tool for you to grow in self-awareness. If you do the tool, if you download the PDF, do the work, you will for sure address your limiting beliefs. Whether or not you want to deal with them and hear what they have to say, that's up to you. But we want to encourage you and give you a simple tool. We're loving this, Bob. Thank you for the conversations. I can't wait for this month.
Yeah, and whether you're driving down the road or sitting by the pool or in your living room, whatever it is, take a moment, give thanks for this beautiful ambition that you've had. And if you've got 9 of them, give thanks 9 times. If you don't have any, then just say, where did that come from? Because I'm telling you, there's just doing a little spade work and just say, I'm going to till this field a little bit. And then if a failure's kept you away, like I'm just telling you, I want to encourage you, where you see a hole that God dug, he sees a foundation he's building.
Yeah.
And so let's get on with it, clear the path of whatever's held you back, and just go do your life.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Bob. Hey, a quick message to college students and recent grads. You know this, but life is short, and there's no better time to declare the big ambitions you have for your life than right now, before you start heading down a path that makes it difficult to change directions. That's why we created this unique program, especially designed for you. And it's called Dream Big, Taking Off. It's fully digital, fully interactive with Bob as your guide. So in the spirit of graduation season, we're opening up the digital course this month only for the month of June. So if you could benefit from Bob as your guide to defining, declaring, and launching your big dreams right now, then this course is for you. By the way, this would also make a great gift to a young person in your life too. So just go to the website, dreambigframework.com, and click on the Taking Off tab. That's dreambigframework.com, Taking Off.